Welcome, listeners, to the Let's Talk and Walk podcast. Today, we are walking in the city discussing a new, interesting topic about, that feeling we all get, right? Aiming high with ideals, but then maybe falling short in what we actually do. We're going to really dive into, hypocrisy.
Yeah, it's definitely something everyone bumps into in ourselves, looking at others. We set these, really admirable goals sometimes, but life gets complicated, doesn't it? And we slip up. Creates a real tension.
Totally. So the plan today is let's try and get beyond just like pointing fingers. Let's really unpack it, understand the why behind it, the psychology, how it works in society maybe how we can live with it, find a way to be more authentic.
Or even just, figure out what good enough looks like in this area. It's really about getting a handle on this very human thing, not just slapping labels on people.
Right. So where should we start? Maybe the word itself, hypocrisy. Where's that from? Because I heard its origin is kind of surprising.
It is, actually. It comes from ancient Greek, the word hypocrisis. And back then, it was pretty neutral. It just meant play acting, performing on a stage.
Like an actor.
Exactly. Hippocrates was just an actor, someone interpreting a role.
Huh. So zero moral judgment attached originally, just doing a job on stage.
That's right, just descriptive. But then somewhere along the line, it really shifted. By around 1200 CE, when it entered English, it had picked up all that negative baggage. It meant the sin of pretending to virtue or goodness.
Wow, okay, that's a huge leap. From stage performer to moral fraud.
It really tells you something, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About society becoming more focused on, authenticity. People started looking behind the mask, asking, is this person genuine or is it just an act?
Yeah.
Judging intent became really important.
Demanding that what you see on the outside matches the inside. Makes sense. So fast forward to today. How do we usually define hypocrisy now? Like the everyday understanding?
Well, the most common one is probably just saying people should do things that you don't do yourself. That whole practice what you preach idea, or rather not practicing what you preach.
The gap, words versus actions.
Right. And in moral psychology, they often define it as failing to follow your own stated moral rules. But it's usually seen as more than just simple inconsistency. It's the pretense involved.
Ah, the pretending part, like faking it.
Exactly. Putting on a false show of being good or virtuous when you're not living up to it.
So it's not just that you slipped up, but you're still claiming the high ground, especially if claiming it helps you somehow.
That's often the key element people react to, that perceived disingenuousness, the idea it might be self-serving, appearing moral to get some benefit while secretly doing something else. That calculation.
That's a really important distinction because we all fail sometimes, right? Weakness of will, making mistakes. That's not automatically hypocrisy.
Not necessarily. It's when that layer of deliberate pretense or maybe even self-deception comes in. Which brings up another key point. Conscious versus unconscious hypocrisy.
Okay, so intentional deception versus not even realizing you're doing it.
Yeah. Conscious is when you know you're not meeting the standard you're promoting, but you pretend you are, usually for some advantage. Unconscious is trickier. It involves self-deception. You might genuinely not see the mismatch in yourself. You sort of convinced yourself you're aligned.
That unconscious bit is
Yeah,
a little unnerving. Makes you wonder about yourself.
it does. But it's really common. Now, think about why society condemns hypocrisy so harshly. It feels personal, but there's a bigger function too.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like a gut reaction, doesn't it? We just hate seeing it.
And that strong reaction actually serves a purpose in society. It makes it costly to fake being virtuous. If you know you'll be called out and shamed for pretending, you're maybe less likely to do it, which, in theory, makes the signals people do send about their character a bit more reliable.
So it's like quality control for moral claims. Helps us trust each other a bit more.
Kind of, yeah. It helps preserve the value of moral language and signals. If anyone could claim anything without consequence, trust would just collapse. So condemning it isn't just punishment. It's also about maintaining social order, keeping that trust mechanism working, however imperfectly.
That's fascinating, seeing it as a social immune response almost. But if it's so bad, why is it so hard for us, for anyone, to be totally consistent? Are we just wired for it?
Well, the short answer seems to be yes, pretty much. Achieving perfect consistency is, let's just say, extremely difficult, maybe impossible for humans. It's deeply tangled up in just how our minds operate.
Okay, I'm ready. What's going on in our heads?
Well, a huge one is cognitive dissonance. You know that feeling, right? That mental squirm when you hold two conflicting ideas or your actions clash with your beliefs.
Like, I should eat healthy while reaching for a donut.
Exactly. Your brain hates that tension, so it tries to resolve it. You might change your belief, donuts aren't that bad. Or rationalize the action, I deserve a treat. Or you might actually talk up the ideal even more to sort of convince yourself and others you really believe it, even as you fail. That can look like hypocrisy.
Huh. So preaching the ideal could sometimes be a way to manage your own discomfort about not meeting it.
It's one possibility, yeah. Then there's the good old self-serving bias. We're naturally inclined to see ourselves in the best possible light. Successes are because we're great. Failures are due to bad luck or unfair circumstances.
Right. My success is skill, your success is luck. We do that all the time.
We do. And it protects our ego, our belief that we're fundamentally good, ethical people. So we easily spot hypocrisy in others because it doesn't challenge our self-view, but we overlook or justify our own inconsistencies.
And that connects back to the self-deception thing.
Absolutely. Our minds are brilliant storytellers, especially when the story is about ourselves. It's often less painful to believe our own slightly tweaked narrative where we are consistent than to face the uncomfortable truth of our actions. It helps us keep a stable sense of self.
So these aren't just moral failings, they're like basic operating features of our brains that make consistency really, really hard.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Add in things like confirmation bias, actively looking for proof that we're right and good, and the make sense stopping rule. Basically, we stop thinking critically as soon as an explanation feels plausible, rather than digging deeper, especially about ourselves.
Oh. It really sounds like our brains are set up to make us inconsistent, at least some of the time.
They're set up to protect our self-image and maintain psychological equilibrium. Factor in just plain weakness of will or situations where values genuinely clash or social pressure. Sometimes people even feel they've earned a little slip-up after doing good deeds. It's complex.
So the gap isn't just bad character, it's baked into the system almost.
And how we judge that gap, how we perceive hypocrisy, can also depend a lot on our cultural background. Condemning fakes might be universal, but what counts as fake and how big a deal it is can vary.
Really? How does culture shape this?
Well, think about typical Western cultures. There's often a strong emphasis on the individual, on being true to yourself, your word being your bond. So saying one thing and doing another feels like a direct hit to personal integrity. Pretty clear-cut hypocrisy.
Because it violates that ideal of the consistent, self-determined individual.
Right. But in cultures that are maybe more interdependent, where identity is more tied up in relationships, social roles, fitting in, inconsistency might be viewed differently. Adapting your behavior to maintain harmony in different social contexts might be seen as, well, socially skilled.
Not necessarily deceitful, but just flexible, reading the room.
Exactly. It might not carry the same immediate judgment of dishonesty. Though, interestingly, in those contexts, maybe relational hypocrisy becomes more important.
What's that?
Like inconsistency within a close relationship, family, close friends. Because the self and others are more intertwined. A betrayal of trust or expectation there might feel even more hypocritical, more damaging than inconsistency in a more public setting.
That makes sense. Feeling someone you're deeply connected to feels different.
Yeah. So you might see, say, one culture focusing more on inconsistency as a failure of self-discipline or loyalty, while another sees it more as outright deceit for personal gain. Our cultural lens shapes what we see and how much it matters.
Our judgments aren't universal, they're filtered.
Which leads us neatly into talking about accusing others of hypocrisy. It's everywhere, isn't it? Almost the go-to criticism, especially online. And it's tricky.
Oh yeah, it's the instant shutdown move. Oh yeah, well what about that time you did X? Argument over.
Exactly. It's often a form of ad hominem attack attacking the person, not their point. Specifically, the two quote fallacy, you too. The aim isn't to debate the idea, it's to disqualify the speaker.
Why are we so quick to jump to that though?
Lots of reasons. Sometimes it's because someone's message makes us feel uncomfortable, it challenges us. Accusing them of hypocrisy feels like a way to dismiss the message without engaging with it. Protects our ego. It can also come from a place of feeling morally superior, maybe even projecting our own struggles onto them.
Oof. So it's not always about high standards. Sometimes it's just feeling threatened or wanting to feel better about ourselves.
That can definitely be a part of it. And we tend to have that double standard, right? We're much more forgiving of our own slip-ups or those of people in our group than we are of outsiders.
Guilty as charged. And the result of all this accusation flying around.
It really stifles productive conversation, doesn't it?
Totally.
The focus shifts from, is this idea true or valuable, to, does this person have the moral standing to even say it? and that's often irrelevant to the idea itself.
Yeah, I mean, if we only listened to perfect people, nobody would be qualified to talk about ethics or improvement.
Right. It creates this impossible purity test, and it just decimates trust overall. If everyone's a potential hypocrite waiting to be exposed, how can you build cooperation or have good faith discussions?
It sounds pretty corrosive. Is there any upside to thinking about hypocrisy?
Definitely. But the most constructive part is usually internal. Turning the lens on yourself. Recognizing your own capacity for inconsistency, your own potential for hypocrisy. That can be incredibly humbling. It's a powerful antidote to self-righteousness.
Like the whole mote in your brother's eye, log in your own eye idea.
Exactly that. That self-awareness can actually make you more empathetic to others who are also struggling. And it can genuinely motivate you to try harder to align your actions with your values. There's also this interesting idea of benign hypocrisy.
Benign. How can hypocrisy be benign? Sounds like an oxymoron.
Well, the idea is this. Someone might be fully aware they're flawed. They don't live up perfectly to the ideals they value. But they still genuinely believe those ideals are important and worth advocating for. Their motive isn't self-promotion. It's a sincere desire to guide or encourage others towards something good, something true.
So they're honest about their own struggles, but they don't give up on the ideal itself.
Right. They separate their personal failings from the value of the principle. This view allows important conversations to happen without demanding perfection from the speakers. It also makes it safer to learn and change your mind, because you're not terrified of being branded a hypocrite if your views evolve.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Growth comes from looking inward and aiming higher, not just tearing others down.
That's the core of it.
Okay, so if perfect consistency is out, how do we aim for, I think you called it good enough? What does that actually look like day to day?
It's really about shifting the goal. Not aiming for zero inconsistency, which is impossible, but aiming for managing it with humility and a real commitment to getting better.
Where do you even start with that?
A huge piece is actively embracing imperfection in ourselves and others. We live in this culture of curated perfection, especially online, right?
Oh, yeah. Everyone's life looks flawless.
And that pressure forces us to hide our flaws, to pretend. That fuels the really problematic, deceptive kind of hypocrisy. It creates distance. But being authentic, being willing to be vulnerable about struggles, that actually builds trust. It shows you're not pretending.
And research shows feeling inauthentic actually makes people more likely to cheat or cut corners, right?
It does. Acting in line with your core values, even imperfectly, and being honest about it is healthier. Remember the pratfall effect. Showing a minor flaw can actually make people like you more, makes you human. So accepting imperfection counters the need for that false front.
Okay, except we're flawed. That's step one. What's step two?
Cultivating self-awareness. You really have to get better at seeing your own gaps, your biases, your rationalizations, the unconscious stuff too.
Easier said than done. How?
Things like mindfulness can help. Just paying attention without judgment. Journaling, reflecting honestly on your day. What did I say I valued? What did I actually do? Getting feedback from trusted friends, people who will be honest with you. And maybe framing questions differently. Instead of, why am I like this? Ask, what can I do differently next time?
Shifting from blame to action. Like, okay, I see the gap here. What's one small step I can take to close it?
Exactly. It's about developing that capacity for honest self-assessment.
So self-awareness spots the gap. Then you need tools to actually, bridge the gap.
Yes. While perfection isn't the goal, we can definitely get better at aligning actions and words. This is where practical strategies come in. Setting really clear goals helps. Using the SMART framework specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound makes intentions less fuzzy.
Turns vague ideals into concrete plans.
Right. Things like prioritizing tasks effectively, tracking your progress, just noting down when you did or didn't follow through, building on existing habits, habit stacking.
Like, after I brush my teeth, I'll spend 2 minutes meditating. Tying the new thing to something automatic.
Exactly. Having accountability partners can help. Optimizing your environment to make the right choices easier. And critically, becoming aware of those little mental tricks we use to let ourselves off the hook, moral disengagement, psychologists call it, rationalizing, minimizing, blaming others. Spotting those helps you stop them.
So it's not about suddenly becoming perfect, but building systems and awareness to consistently nudge yourself in the right direction.
Precisely. It's about making progress, not achieving perfection. Incremental improvement.
Okay, final piece then. What about those really messy situations? The moral gray areas where the rules aren't clear, and maybe any choice has downsides.
Yeah, that's where integrity really comes into play. Integrity in those spots isn't about always knowing the right answer, because often there isn't one clear one. It's about doing your best to figure out what seems most right, acting on that judgment even when it's hard, and being transparent about why you chose it, acknowledging you might be fallible.
How do you make better judgments when things are murky?
You can try to hedge against mistakes, get second opinions, talk it through with diverse perspectives, look at similar cases, maybe use ethical checklists or frameworks to guide thinking.
And the big danger is letting your own interests cloud your judgment.
That's the core challenge. Resisting the pull to prioritize your own private goods like your reputation, money, or comfort over the collective goods the situation demands, like fairness, justice, or the well-being of others. When personal gain consistently trumps ethical considerations, that's when things really fall apart morally.
So integrity is about striving to prioritize the right things, even when it costs you personally, and being honest about the struggle.
Yes, it's not about never having conflicts of interest, but about navigating them ethically, not just caving to the easiest or most self-serving option. It requires ongoing effort, self-awareness, and humility, especially in complexity. Being good enough here means actively, consciously trying to do the right thing, even when it's hard and unclear. So yeah, wrapping up, hypocrisy, or at least inconsistency, is just fundamentally human. Psychology, social pressures, perfect alignment is basically a myth.
But the way society reacts to it, while sometimes weaponized, does serve a function in trying to maintain trust.
It does. And the real engine for positive change isn't pointing fingers outward, but looking inward, recognizing our own potential for it, cultivating humility, wanting to bridge our own gaps.
So the path forward isn't about some impossible quest for purity. It's more about managing inconsistency through self-awareness, embracing authenticity, flaws and all, using practical strategies to get better, and navigating those tough gray areas with real integrity.
Right. Being vulnerable takes away the need for that damaging pretense. And that idea of benign hypocrisy allows us to keep striving for ideals, keep talking about them, even though we know we're imperfect.
So good enough isn't about lowering the bar. It's about the ongoing effort, the striving, acknowledging we're human, and committing to that journey of growth.
Exactly. The ethical work is never really done. But we can aim for a more authentic, more intentionally ethical way of being in the world, even with our imperfections.
All right, that wraps up our walk for today. Definitely gave us a lot to think about, maybe something to mull over with a coffee or a snack. It was a really interesting one, and we truly hope you all listening enjoyed it as much as we did. Thanks for joining us.
We greatly value your engagement. If you found this episode informative, please consider leaving a like. We also welcome your suggestions for new topics and areas you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Feel free to share those in the comment section.
And finally, to ensure you don't miss out on our upcoming content, please hit the subscribe button and share it with your friends.
We look forward to bringing you more interesting discussions. Thank you for listening to the Let's Talk and Walk podcast.